Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Beth Hawley with the Arizona Association of Realtors, and we're pleased to present session 2 in the Art of Leadership, Art of Influence series with Dave Richards. Dave has been in the real estate mortgage business for over 22 years and in leadership for 20 of those years. He's led a billion-dollar area for a Fortune 100 company and held multiple positions in leadership. Currently, Dave is the Regional Vice President for OnQ Financial over Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico. In 2015, Dave became a certified coach, speaker, and trainer for the John Maxwell team. In 2016, he was one of 200 coaches to go with John to the Transformación Paraguay, where they trained over 10,000 leaders in multiple streams of influence. Today's presentation will be about 35 to 45 minutes. We encourage you to be an active participant in these sessions. Feel free to ask questions during the webinar by writing in the question box. If you'd like to speak, please dial into the phone call or have a computer mic connected. Click on the raised hand icon and we'll open your mic. As always, today's webinar will be recorded and available next week on our website at aaronline.com. So welcome and let's get started.
All right. Well, thank you, Beth, and good morning, everybody. Still coming to you from Utah today. And so I'm excited again to be able to come back and be able to continue our conversation of the art of leadership, and specifically the first series in 6 ways of increasing your influence in leadership. Again, just to remind, please make sure that we keep this interactive. Want to make sure that I encourage you to interact on our Facebook page. If you haven't signed in already, please do so. Get with Beth, myself, or Barb. We'll make sure that we get you added to the Facebook page and an opportunity for us to continue to share. I try to give a couple different nuggets, some videos, things like that that's there, but I'd love to encourage and have a little more dialogue. And so on Tuesday, we were able to kind of share and talk a little bit about some of the books that we were reading. And so I'd love to see some additional recommendations there. It gives me a chance to increase my wish list on my Audible and ordering in Amazon. And so I'd love to get your feedback, what books have been impactful that have certainly inspired and helped you from a variety of things. So anyway, I just want to make sure I encourage you to interact on the Facebook page that's there. So again, just a reminder, let's be present as much as we can here. Got to love the electronic cell phone, but if you can, put it to the side and let's try to make sure we're kind of focused the time. As Beth said, we will stay focused in on our time here together and make sure that we end on time. And so we'll be respectful and mindful of your schedule and your time that's here. So, all right. So just a recap of what we talked about on Tuesday was about the process. And really, like I shared on Tuesday, the process really is the bedrock. It is really the foundation of building your leadership and specifically your influence, as you really need to make sure that you understand that, again, leadership and influence, they develop daily. They don't develop overnight or in a day. We need to focus, obviously, on what phase we're in, as we talked about. And you can go back and see the PowerPoint and some of the outline that's there to see what phase are you in. And sometimes you may be in a different phase in the different roles. So at home versus work versus a new role. Many of you are taking multiple roles where you're a realtor by day and on the board of realtors or other nonprofits and other things that you've got going on in your community. And so again, you may see that you're at a different phase in each and every different role that's there. And so again, proper assessment and seeing where you're at helps you outline your plan for growth. And really that's, again, part of it that you need to really focus in on is, do you have a plan? And making sure that you look at it, that you reflect daily, and that you've got, again, a commitment to focus in on that particular growth. And so with that personal growth plan, we talked a little bit about perspective and lenses. And as I shared, earlier on Tuesday, Plato's remarks about, again, reminding and really learning really comes from that reminding part. I just encourage, again, to take that same perspective, that same lens in looking at today's topic of what we're talking about in terms of valuing others and taking that lens of, do I live out, right? How are my interactions daily with folks, and do I live out this? Because many times I think we see presentations or we see different topics like this, we get into the dialogue, we have the head nod and say, oh yeah, this is absolutely it. and I agree with this. However, it comes down to how we live, right, and how we play it out in our day-to-day interactions. Actually, Pablo Picasso says, again, action is the fundamental key to success. And so again, it's not just head knowledge and that cognitive, but it's actually, again, coming throughout and how is it manifesting inside your life. And so just want to go, just take a look at that. So people of influence value others. And that's really what our topic is today, that we're going to get into and take a look at, is again, that people of influence. Everyone influences others. Anytime your life connects or intersects with another, you're influencing them. So the question is why not be a positive influence to others? Why not be intentional? Why not focus in on how you can improve or help others? And that's really what you want to look at. When you earn, and the first part here, you can see in the picture about trust. And so in order to really influence and showcase value, you've got to earn trust from people. People respect your motives instead of suspect them if they trust you. And trust will give you the opportunity to influence and add value in others. It really takes focusing on the little things many times in our relationships that, again, continues and maintains that trust. But again, just kind of foundationally in terms of pouring in and valuing others, you have to build trust with them. Motives matter, right? How you influence matters. It's kind of funny. I think many times people think that from a positional standpoint, once I achieve this role, this leadership position, a manager spot, whatever it may be, that at that point, I've now hit this summit, I've hit this level of being a leader. And really, we all know that that's not about leadership and that's not about influencing others. Many times, those that are on the top, unfortunately, leaders like that, really don't influence and really have a low impact on people. And so again, how you influence folks matters, whether it's coming from a position itself, certainly from influence, as we'll talk through some of these things, you may actually have some memories or some things, some specific interactions that will come to mind that may have felt more like manipulation versus actually showing value and giving value. And I would encourage you to lean into that to understand why that felt differently. And I think that what you'll find is the authenticity, genuineness, again, where that person's motives are, is probably the determining factor between both sides of whether you're seeing that value versus a manipulative type focus that's there. Again, the height of your influence upon others will depend upon the depth of your concern for them. So it really comes down to, do you care for them? It's not about, again, trying to manipulate or get them. Manipulation really leads to a win-loss. Somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. And instead, true influence and truly helping and giving to others is really coming from a place of giving. And it's in a place, again, of caring for the best for them. So today we're going to talk about 3 ways to bring value to others. And so how we can do that. So the first one we're going to talk about is nurture others. We'll talk a little bit about what that means and what it doesn't mean. We're going to talk about faith in others, or the belief in them or the cause that you're representing. And then we're going to talk about enlarging others. And so those 3 areas is really going to be the focus of our conversation today in how you can increase your influence in other people's lives using or leveraging in the nurturing, faith in, and enlarging others. So, all right. So many people love their position, right? So many leaders love their position more than they love their people. Very few actually love their people more than their position. What's interesting is that the first, when you love your position more than you love your people, that leads to the loss of position many times. And yet when you focus in on the people, it actually leads to a strengthening of your influence and your position itself. Now, the Wall Street Journal published a study of over 16,000 leaders, and 13% of that 16,000 leaders were actually identified as high achieving executive leaders. And from that, from their study, what they found was that out of that 13% of high achievers, those high achievers cared both for their people and their profits. So they cared both for their people and their profits. The average leader in that study concentrated on production. They focused more on the productive and production part of the business. And low achievers, executive achievers, focused or were more preoccupied on their own self-security, right? Self-preservation. They were focused on positioning themselves or keeping them in a power-focused situation. Interesting when you think about the differences of where your focus is, and I'm sure you have some examples in your life where you've seen leaders that have been focused more on, again, the people versus the production versus, of course, their own self-preservation that's there. Another facet from that particular study is that high-achieving executives viewed their team or their subordinates overall optimistically. So they thought well of them. They actually thought, hey, they were encouraged with the team around them. Whereas low-achieving executives actually had a basic distrust for their team and for the people that they worked with. Interesting in terms of our perspective on people, and we'll dive into that a little bit further later on too. High achievers sought advice from others, not just their superiors, but also peers and subordinates and the full team, right? They wanted full perspective and they sought advice across the board to create a conversation there. Low achievers didn't. High achievers were great listeners. Low, mod, or average achievers, they listened to only their superiors. Interesting. Whereas low achievers avoided communication altogether. And instead, they relied upon manuals or policies to communicate out to the team. Interesting when you look at that study, that again, that nice guy persona that so many times we hear nice guys finish last, that in that study, you can see the 13%, I would say that those areas of viewing their team more optimistically, caring more about their people, seeking advice, and also being great listeners would be more classified in the nice guy category. And so I think that again is just a great reminder for us that how we approach and how we communicate to our team is important. And that's really, again, the nurture. Nurturing is the process. So this is the definition of nurture. Nurture is the process of caring for and encouraging the growth or development of someone or something. All right. So what is nurturing? Nurturing people does not mean needing people. Let me ask, what do you think that means? Nurturing people does not mean needing people. How does that land on you? Does anybody have any thoughts or ideas on that? Almost sounds counterintuitive of what I just said, but why would nurturing not mean needing people?
Lori says giving of yourself.
Okay, giving of yourself, certainly. Any other thoughts on why it wouldn't mean to need people?
And also putting their needs above yourself.
Yes, absolutely. I think that one of the areas that you have to be careful of in terms of nurturing others and why it doesn't mean that you need people is that in an environment or in a situation where you're put, where you absolutely need the other person, what their decisions, their thoughts, their influence will dictate how and what you'll do for the business and whether it's the right thing. So for instance, if they make a decision that it's the best thing for them and their family to say, leave and go to another organization, right? Then all of a sudden it may put you in a spot that you're willing to do some things that are not the right thing for the company, that they're not the right thing for the organization as a whole. So when you're put into that situation, it can cause you, of course, you can lose that control over what's right that's there. When you look at nurturing people does mean commitment to them, right? indifference will always find an excuse. So if you're not committed to people, you'll always be able to find an excuse not to pour into them, not to assist that's there. I don't know if you've ever heard of the story I've shared many times with folks throughout the years about Cortez and his conquering of the Aztec nation that had never been conquered before. And as he brought his army onto the shores with the boats, and they all gathered together for this strong inspirational message to all the soldiers of how they're going to conquer and take the land. Cortez, all he said was 2 words to them: or 3 words, sorry, burn the boats, right? Burn the boats. Talking about commitment there, right? So what he was communicating to his soldiers and to them is basically, look, we're going to either win or we're going to die, perish, right? So we're not going back. And that's that burn the boats. And so I would ask you, do you have that mentality for people? Do you burn the boats? Are you committed to them? Are you committed to their success? Are you committed to, again, help them and bring out the best in them? You've got also nurturing people does mean loving people. I love the quote from Henry Drummond. So Henry Drummond, who said, "You will find as you look back upon your life that the moments when you have truly lived are those when you have done things in the spirit of love, above all wanting the best for someone else," right? So loving somebody is above all, above your desires or wants or anything like that. It's wanting what's best for them. And so looking at that, I think that really embodies how we should be. And the 4th bullet is nurturing people does mean lifting people higher or to a higher ground. Some of you may have heard the quote, though, that it's lonely on top. And it's obvious that the person who said that was not a leader, because if they're up on the top and nobody's with them, who are they leading, right? They're all by themselves. And so obviously our job as leaders, our jobs of influencing others is to help bring people up, to lift them, to help them take them to the top and help them achieve the goals and what they really want to accomplish together and being together. So again, nurturing is about lifting people. So it's not about needing people. So making sure that dynamic of the relationship is in the right frame so that you can be focused for them and what's in their best interest. It's about being committed to them. It's about loving them. You've heard me share before, though, at the LTA is unconditional love, right? And then it's about lifting people higher. So let's talk a little bit about how do I nurture? So, right, sounds great, sounds like I need to do this, but how do I do this, right? How do I actually bring forth a nurturing environment or a nurturing part that's there? First things first is you got to love, right? You need to have a heartfelt, and as I shared on the Facebook post is, this really is about the heart. And it's again goes through with the motive aspect that's there and where you're coming from, but you got to like people, you got to love people and want to assist and help them. And so you need to come from a place of love that you want what's best for them. And so having that genuine care or interest in others is going to be important for you to actually create a nurturing environment for your team itself. You got to respect, right? So it's respecting people, it's showing them respect, and it's creating that respect between each other. People in your life, a sense of security. People want to be secure, right? So they want to feel secure in their environment, not a feeling of fear or anything like that. Instead, they want to be and feel secure with things. So do you do things, right? And what I would ask you to do is write down, what do you do to create a sense of security? What do you do to create a sense of love that your team or those that you work with, how do they know that you love them? How do they know that you respect them? And how do you bring forth recognition and encouragement to them? So write that down, because I'd like at the end for us to kind of share some ideas or thoughts, again, of how we showcase, how do we show our team that we love them, respect them? How do we create a sense of security so that we get the best out of them? And how do we recognize and encourage them? You know, it's interesting. I've shared this with some folks, and so some of you may have heard this before, but you know, people care more about, so I think, let me rephrase it this way. Most people, when they interact with somebody else, their focus in talking and engaging with the other person is to impress that other person. That's where you get those individuals that got to be the one up, right? They got to tell you a story that's going to one up your story or trump it. They're the ones that never ask you a question. And literally, you could have said nothing and 15 minutes would have gone by and they go, hey, it was great talking to you. And obviously, you look at them and say, what do you mean talking? I just basically was a sounding board. You weren't even here with me, right? So those individuals that are focused in on maybe going over all of their accolades, all the awards that they've won, all the things that they've accomplished or done, or make themselves look good or impress you or those that are around you. We've all had interactions with people like that. But the best, right? The best leaders, the best influencers really understand that whenever we have a conversation or I interact with you, my greatest ability to influence you comes from how you feel about yourself after our interaction. You really could care less about how you feel about me. Because whether you know a whole lot or I've given you proof of accolades or anything like that, if I can make you feel better about yourself, if when in my interaction, I can genuinely bring up things or genuinely be engaged in a conversation with you that makes you feel better about yourself, then that's going to open up the opportunity for me to pour in and genuinely influence or help you and add value to you. It's going to open up that gateway. So it's important that, again, when you interact with others, do you focus on impressing them? Do you want to make sure that you get your little shots in as they kind of go through their resume, that you get in your resume? Or do you focus on just listening to them? And again, focusing on how am I making them feel, right? It goes along with those 4 points of creating an environment of love, respect, sense of security, and recognition, along with encouragement. I'm going to move into that second bullet that we're looking at, and that is faith in others. People will rise and they will fall to meet your level of expectation of them, your expectation of them. If you project a doubt or a mistrust, then people will generally reward you with mediocrity. This is really about how do you project, how do you feel about people? Do you genuinely have faith in people and do you project that to them? Do you go in and engage with somebody and say, hey, I believe in you? We all have a feeling or a hunger for those that believe in us, that lift us up with that, right? That encourage us, that again, showcase that. Many times, again, if you put somebody at a higher level and you project where you need them to be at, they will, most times, right? They will actually rise and elevate to the level that you're asking them to perform. But if you bring down to what you think their level really is right now, then that's exactly what they're going to hit. That's exactly where they're going to be. So as you look to value or bring value into one's life, it's looking at and projecting where they could be, right? How can I help elevate them? And how you can help elevate them is to bring in a visual and a focus of where you can see them to get. And most people will look at that and they will go the extra mile for you to accomplish or do what needs to be done. So again, having faith in others is huge in terms of creating an influence with them. So the question comes is, do you show faith in others? Do you focus in on specific interactions? Are you intentional? Are you, again, do you look for ways to add faith, to bring in faith into others? Again, most people, and as we back up and just look in the general population, most people have a deficit in self-belief. Do you believe that? That most people that are around us have a deficit in their self-belief. They doubt themselves. They constantly put themselves down, maybe degrade themselves or look at themselves lower, right? So if that's the case, if most people around you have a deficit, What about us being able to come in and help fill that deficit, to help them rise, to bring them confidence, right? That's there. They will, again, because people have a deficit there, people will gravitate to leaders who showcase and show them and bring into focus where their talents, where their skills, and where they can bring value to the organization, team, or anything that's there. They're going to gravitate to teams or to leaders, again, that lift them, that believe in them, that help them rise, that's there. So again, it's taking the focus that, look, assets make things possible, right? Your resources around you, they can make things possible, but people is really where things happen. People are what makes things happen. And so understanding, do I come across in a manner that, again, shows that I care about people, that, again, that I understand that people are what things matter. The greatest gift that a leader can ever give another person is to believe that person or believe in that person. And so it's important to, again, look and see how that, right? So it's to express belief in them. That's the greatest gift you can ever give anybody around you. Let's take a look at faith is belief in action. So let's talk about how faith is belief in action that's there. It's important. Believe before success. You know, people aren't going to see that you believed in them if after they've already won the gold medal, you say, hey, oh, I believe in you, right? That doesn't really denote, though, that you believed in them beforehand. So it's important that before they embark, before they achieve, before they succeed, that you focus in on how can I showcase and show them belief. I think that each one of us, as we look at our career, or we look at the things that we've been able to accomplish, we can all point to someone who believed in us before we even believed in ourselves. So are you going to be that person for somebody else? Will you help them? So believe before they succeed. Focus on the strengths. Again, you guys have seen maybe strength finders and other parts, but I think we're getting a lot more insights rather than focusing on somebody's weaknesses and how they need to work on this and grow and constantly being pushed down in regards to that. Focus on their strengths and help them actually magnify them, leverage them again for the cause, and again, help them see the value that they bring that's there. So focusing on the strengths is big. List past successes. Many times I think that when we have conversations or we're talking with people, maybe we're having one-on-one, whether it be, again, people that work for us or are part of the team together, you know, it's important that if they're getting down, you need to bring forward or list, again, some of the successes. Hey, just want to, you know, do you remember when you did this? What a fantastic job, right? Do you know how much you impacted people when you did this, or how this actually impacted myself? So again, it's important to, again, talk through and share those things. Instill confidence when they fail. Many times, again, when you look at, when you have a failure that occurs, you want somebody to come alongside to bring forth confidence that, hey, let's get back up and let's keep on charging. What can we learn from this? And let's focus in on moving forward that's there. People look for, and the way that you can, again, instill or live out belief or faith in others, to visualize their future success. Help them see what they can be. Help them see what they can become and what they can do and how much greater they can be within it. So again, it's important to talk through and look at that. So a question again, and then the sixth part is expect a new level of living. Again, it goes back to projecting where you feel or where you see that they should be at. So again, project that. Show them, help them visualize, help and show the expectation. Put that level of expectation of where they need to achieve or where they should be at. That's based upon, of course, what they're looking for, not what you want, but what they're looking for. And so having an authenticity about that, but again, helping them see that. When you think about, again, the average person having a deficit in their self-belief, these are 6 ways that you can help bring forth that and help fill that in them and how you can live it all out. All right. And in just a minute, now we're gonna go into the third part, and that is enlarging others. And then after that, we'll go into and see if we can get a little more interaction and some of the things asking you to write down and things that have maybe impacted. So the last part is enlarging others. Number one, we have to remember that you cannot give what you do not have. That's why the very first box there states you have to grow yourself. That's why it was important for us to start with the process. I can't just jump into influencing others and trying to bring value to them if I actually don't work on myself or grow. Question for you. Do you feel like your influence or your leadership is more like a travel agent or a tour guide? Are you more like a travel agent or a tour guide? What do I mean by that? What do you think I mean by, are you a travel agent versus being a tour guide? Anyone have an idea?
Brad says show versus tell.
There you go.
And then Evan says tell versus show.
Yep. That's great. Absolutely, right? A travel agent just gets you there. Just kind of goes, okay, here's what you need to do. Maybe, you know, I saw this or whatever it may be. This looks really cool. I think it'd be good for you, right? I think this will help you grow. Well, there's a big difference between that and, again, a tour guide who says, look at the journey that I've been through. Look at how I've grown. Here's the things that I've done, right? Or that I've seen carry out, or I've experienced. Here's the lessons that I've learned, right? Creating transparency and vulnerability. Here's the areas that I've actually made mistakes on, and let me share with you how it impacted and what lessons I learned, right? So it's, again, taking that first part of the process of reflecting and planning daily and using that to help mentor others, to help, again, enlarge others. So, again, you got to focus on growing yourself so that you can, again, be the tour guide, not just the travel agents that's there. Once you focus in on that, and as you're growing, so it doesn't mean that you're at a pinnacle, right? But as you're growing and as you've invested in yourself, that's when you're going to be able to impart and really start to invest in people and to help grow other people. And really, again, that's what leads to the organizational growth. So this really answers the question of how do we grow our organization? How do we take AAR to the next level? How do we take realtors to the next level in the business life? How do we change or make change in our business, right? We've got to grow ourselves, right? We then can start with, and once we focus on that, then we can step into growing others and growing people, which then will lead to the organizational change and the organizational growth that's there. Pretty simple, isn't it, right? Gandhi says, you know, be the change you're looking for, right? Doesn't say, hey, let me be the travel agent and tell how all you people need to do things differently. It's be that change. And so, again, starting with that is the principle of enlarging others, right? So the question to ask yourself is, do I enlarge others? Do I look to be bigger than them? Am I focused on trying to be so controlling that I don't help and really, again, project a belief in somebody to step up? Do I try to control things too much? Do I actually enlarge them? Do I want to try to create this hierarchy, right? That I've got to be above them and they've got to be below me. Or do I bring them up to me, right? Are we here together? We talk about those kind of principles of leadership, but really, again, focusing on how and do I really do that each and every day when I interact with others. So when you enlarge others, you seize an opportunity to help them reach their potential. So when you enlarge others, you seize an opportunity for them to reach their potential. So when you can project, when you can help them see and build them up bigger than even where they're currently at, that gives them the opportunity to actually seize their potential, their full potential. Somebody's got to believe in them, right? Same with you. You're not where you're at without somebody coming alongside and believing in you. Enlarging process. So this is kind of the quick bit in terms of the enlarging process. How do I enlarge people? Again, it's seeing their potential, talking with them, engaging with them, having a conversation of finding out what they care about, actively listening, right? So, and then that allows you then to see and be able to help them see then, right? Which is the next step is casting a vision, helping them see the potential that they've got, right? And what that vision of a future could be that's there. Tap into their passion, right? We all focus in on the strengths that's there. Find out what they love and help them focus in on that. Help them grow that in their life. Address character flaws. This is a tough one, isn't it? When we think about it, that's a tough one. It's tough when you're in a relationship and you actually got to talk about something specifically in a character aspect that's a flaw, and being able to have that honest conversation that's there. Now, number one, I would encourage, make sure you evaluate where you're coming from. So what your motive is in talking to them about this. Number two, do you have the relationship to breathe this truth into their life, right? Do you have that relationship? Because you may not have it. And at that point, you're probably not the right person to do that. And then again, bring it to them in love and talk with them. Sometimes this may be defined out in a role of mentorship or coaching that allows for this, but sometimes many of you run a team, you manage a team, or you manage an organization, that this is something that you've got to, that's a part of your role of what you need to do and help grow there. But I just encourage to take a look at that, is again, focusing on that. I heard a funny story about character, and there was a company that was asking, why is there no more business ethics or business character? And I think what's funny about that particular question is it's assuming that business ethics or business character is different than personal character or personal ethics. I think that's really where we get tripped up. Somehow there is a different level of ethics or character, right? And I think that that's where we need to make sure is character is character. Ethics is ethics. There is no difference between the two. So making sure that we're able to teach that and breathe that truth into others that are there. Focus on their strengths. We already talked about that in terms of engaging their passions. And then again, enlarge them one step at a time. When we talk about seeing their potential and casting a vision, pretty tough to go from where they're at right now as the janitor cleaning the floors and saying, you know what, I can see you're going to do this, and you're going to run the company in 2 months, right? One step at a time, help lead them through, because you're going to lose them at that point. They're going to go, you're crazy. They're going to move on. So again, it's focusing on helping them take it bite-sized, helping them focus in on and enlarging them one step at a time, so that again, you're going with them. That's there. All right, I'm going to pause here because what I'd love to hear is from you all. What are some ways that you enlarge others? Where do we go here? Let's see here. Let's go back to the beginning. There we go. Let's talk about the nurturing aspect. Does anybody have any examples on how they've been able to create a nurturing environment? Or how they can be more in tune to those people around them and their needs? Anybody? You guys may be thinking and writing things down. I'll share one thing for me, and that is listening. I think that listening is the key to being a good nurturer. And, you know, I have to admit, and to be vulnerable with each of you, listening doesn't come easy to me. In just honesty, it's just not that easy. And it's something that I've had to develop over the years to help grow in my listening skills. A few tips that I do. And so if you've got that same knack or that same maybe challenge in the listening department, though, there's a few tips that I do to help out and help me focus in on my listening skills that's there. So number one, I always bring a notebook. If any of you, we've had the opportunity to see, I usually carry quick black, notebook that's there along with a pen. What this forces me to do is it forces me to listen through the conversation and write things out that's there, right? So if I got a notebook, I got to use it. And so it, again, slows me down within it. Some of you guys may or may not know DISC or working through it, but my motor, right, I'm an ID. And so being an ID, my mind moves very quickly. And so I have to I have to be intentional when I listen to others to slow myself down. And so notebook is one of the things that's there. The other part is reading body language, and I would say that's a deal. And for me, sometimes I'll sit in a manner that will actually just remind me, put my hand somewhere, on my mouth or something to that effect that engages or reminds me from a sensory basis of be quiet, listen. So that's just 2 tips that I do that's there for the listening part. What else do you guys do to help create a nurturing environment? Do you all do?
Cindy gives them a task and then helps them do it and gives them credit for their success.
Great. Helping them see success, right? Leading them through that. I mean, that's fantastic. And it builds confidence for them to then take on the next part. Great.
Mary likes to be excited for them and
yes.
the future leadership roles. So to show that.
Mary, I didn't bring that up, but I think that's a huge point, right? Authentic enthusiasm. Do you bring forth into the relationship and, with others, do you bring that authentic enthusiasm? And that's huge. Great job. Thank you, Mary.
And keeping an open door policy. Eric likes to make sure his agents know that they are always welcome in his office to speak with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that comment about keeping an open door policy. And I think, again, it really talks through how we keep it. Because I don't know about you, Eric, but I've been in organizations or I've had bosses that have said that they've got that open door policy, yet whenever I come in or when I've got something, they're not really present with me. And they don't really, they're really not listening. And it's kind of like, okay, I got to do this because I got to do this. But I think having that authentic open door policy is such a big deal. People just want to be listened to. That's great.
Evan likes to encourage people to forgive themselves, even on little things.
Wow.
And when they make a mistake, just give them a break.
Yeah. We're usually our worst critic, aren't we, Evan? We're usually the one that wants to beat ourselves up even further. And so coming alongside and showcasing that grace and that forgiveness aspect of saying, look, it's going to be okay. I've been there before, or however it may be. That's such a huge gift to be able to give others and to create that nurturing environment. Great. Let's move to that next one, faith in others. So how have you been able to show, right? How do you show others that you have faith or belief in them? I think sometimes this can be challenging as how can you consistently push others to pursue higher standards without appearing to be an impossible to please, right? If you're in that leadership in terms of kind of leading a whole team, sometimes, especially for those high achieving individuals, it's difficult to translate. How do I create a belief in them? I may be feeling like I'm showing faith and believing in them, but really what I've done is I've created this environment where they feel like, oh my gosh, Dave, I can never please Dave. He always wants, it at level 10 that's there.
Eric says empowering others is a way to show faith.
Absolutely.
Then Diana asks them to take on a task and tells them that she has confidence in their ability.
Yep, absolutely.
And Brad as well will give away important tasks and then thank them.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary just likes to tell them that, they'll grow into great leaders and they don't have to necessarily be there right away.
That's great. Helping them understand it's the process, right? I think it goes back to what we talked about on Tuesday, helping them understand that it's a process, that you're going to grow into this and you too will be there, right? Or you will be there. That's great. How about some examples of individuals that you've worked with that maybe, created an environment that wasn't, that didn't showcase faith? Anything in that world though that you learned from to say, I won't do that? Okay. That's all right. It's good not to have those examples, right? Now, along the same line of what Mary is kind of sharing, again, that enthusiasm and really just showcasing the belief, I think goes right along with Phil Knight's quote that being a belief is just flat out irresistible, right? So people are just drawn to you enthusiastically believing in them. And again, I think that it just brings forth that synergy when you can just enthusiastically bring forth that faith in them. How about enlarging others? How do you do this with the boards and the groups that you lead, specifically maybe on a volunteer basis, and not come across as, I got something that I have to get done. I need a volunteer. You do it for me. Can you do it? So doing it in an authentic way. I think sometimes that can be challenging, especially in the volunteer world. Anybody have any examples of how they can enlarge others in an authentic way?
Lori recognizes their past successes.
Absolutely, Lori, right? Their past successes are going to give you a door or a window into what maybe their passions and what they'll continue to be great at. Yeah, fantastic. That's great. All right. Any questions, any thoughts in regards to what we've talked about so far today? Just kind of give an open opportunity. As you guys think about that, what I'm going to share is I'm going to share 4 building blocks to influence in your first meeting. So this is talking about that first interaction, that first introduction, that first conversation as you meet somebody. I'm going to give you 4 building blocks to influence, right? The building blocks that will to start the process of influencing others in it. So this is not on the note piece. It's something separate. I'll post it onto Facebook, but just something to go through. The number one thing that I've got for you is exactly what Mary said. And that is to show genuine enthusiasm for the meeting, right? Smile. Showcase that you're actually excited and that you're enthusiastic to be there or to meet them or to, learn about them. So being enthusiastic about the meeting itself. I think that in business, again, this plays huge, right? And so versus those individuals that are looking around over the side of you, et cetera, really be engaged, be focused, and be enthusiastic about the meeting itself. Number 2, offer a compliment. Genuine, needs to be authentic, but engage in a compliment. People like that, right? Again, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier about how they feel about themselves is much more critical in my ability to be a part of, to add value to them than how they feel about me. So bring up a compliment and look for that. Number 3, ask at least 2 open-ended questions. Interesting, huh? Not just yes or no, open-ended questions. Get them engaged in the conversation with you. That's where you're going to learn, and some of the sweetest nuggets of friendship comes from those open-ended questions of just learning about their passion, learning about their family, who they love, what their passions are. And so opening up that and having, again, open-ended questions within that leads into giving you more connection with them. And the 4th thing is find something in common, right? Find something that you share. Maybe it could be anything, but you can connect or you can find something in common with everyone, right? So that's the 4th bullet that's there. Again, 4 ways, 4 quick things to think about when you're engaging or when you're first meeting somebody on how our 4 building blocks to then to basically build blocks into becoming influential or helping from a leadership role there. So, all right. What other questions? Are there any questions that you have, or any thoughts, anything come to mind that was something, again, that you maybe already learned, but hearing it again, makes you think differently, or you've seen it and maybe some, the way that you lived out maybe a little bit different. You're like, oh man, I want to grow in this, or learn or lean in more in this. What are your guys' thoughts in regards to, again, valuing or showing value to others?
Clark says he definitely needs to work on that listening.
Thank you, Clark. I appreciate you not leaving me hanging all by myself and feeling like I was the only one that had a problem listening. Anyone else?
Patrick says it's been a great reminder to always continue to mentor and build and engage. So he wants to thank you for that.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Patrick.
And Cindy says just always remembering to keep your questions open-ended.
I can't tell you how many times I've got stuck where I've asked that closed-end question, like, oh, what was I doing? And so just reminding yourself, going through that, I think that's a big deal, because it just opens things out. So great.
And Eric says it's always about the people first.
Amen. Spoken from a true eye, right? It is about people. So it goes back to that original quote, though. People are what make things happen.
And Diana appreciates the reminder to recall a conversation from a previous meeting and let them know you still recall what they said.
Yeah, absolutely, right? That shows an active participant or an active listening skill when you can recall conversations before or things, and it makes people feel valued. It makes them feel important. It makes them feel like you care, and that's what you're building. That's what you do, right? I mean, when it's coming forth in that heartfelt way, an authentic way, it's great. Again, I think that the reminder really comes from being intentional. And I think that as we look through the process, as we transition into valuing others, right, it's being intentional, right? Making sure that you are looking for ways to actively show value to others. I think many times we're all busy. We've all got things going on. And many times we forget, right? And we just kind of go through that day and we're like, oh man, whatever occurred, I didn't get a chance to really, to talk with that person I meant to, or I feel horrible. I felt like I blew that person off. But it's really, again, understanding it's a process and understanding that you need to be intentional, right? It needs to be thought out and planned in terms of it, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that says, look, this is my heart and this is what I really want to share and how I can grow. And if you can become aware of that, if you can increase your conscious awareness of those around you, you're going to be able to increase your influence, because you're going to be able to increase the value that you can give to other people. And you're going to help bring them along and help them come to the top. So you won't be at the top alone and solo there. Instead, you'll be surrounded by many, many friends and many, many of those that have accomplished more than they ever thought, and really feel that difference between the success, which was really about my accomplishments and me, right, in terms of my life or bettering myself, and significance. And that's where you're bettering others around you. So thank you guys for your time today. We're ending 4 minutes early to give back to your day. That's there. Please make sure that you jump on the Facebook page. Let's create some interaction, some thoughts. Love to interact with. You can also just personal message me too. If you've got something that you want to ask or talk through, I certainly would welcome that. Anyway, I just want to thank you for your time. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk through valuing others and how we can make a difference in other people's lives. So thanks, everybody. Make it a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Dave. I also wanted to very quickly remind you that the third session for this series is next Tuesday, July 25th. And the recording for the first session is now on the Facebook page. So thank you.
All righty. Thanks, everybody.